Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning. So, we had the CNN hit piece, This Is Life, with that, quite frankly, manky looking woman. I mean, she just looks horrible. She just looks a bit washed up. What is mgtow? And it's happened, basically. YouTube is now going after the mgtow movement and demonetizing these channels. It's always a question of time. But the most important thing is this is not going to stop the movement. I mean, the movement's been going since about 2000, well before YouTube. So whatever happens, it will just go back to revert back to what it was doing before YouTube. It's as simple as that. There are other mediums. BitChute is another medium. I'm using that to upload my videos to. And I actually get people watch my videos. Whereas on YouTube, I might get one or two people. It looks like one or two clicks. On BitChute, I'll get 50 or 60 people. So I think this is ultimately this is going to help BitChute. More and more people are going to go with their channel and use their channel. But it's clearly, this is life. CNN doesn't give a shit about mgtow. It wants to shut it down. That's what it wants to do. I haven't seen the full Big John interview. I saw snippets of it. It wasn't as intense as he could have been, as he should have been, I feel. That's the problem with a lot of men. They always become very polite, especially in these kinds of situations, and are not rude. They don't lose their temper in front of women. But he should have been, much more direct in the way that he has been. But unfortunately, I mean, maybe he was. I mean, apparently they said this was an hours-long interview, over an hours-long interview, and there was only a few minutes that was used, which is usual. But they edit it to death. But ultimately, this is a good thing, really, because it just shows you what CNN is about. It's a disgusting organization. I don't watch it. I used to watch it back in the day when satellite was fairly new. It was fantastic to be able to switch and see this news service, but it's a waste of time. The BBC has just admitted that it's left-leaning. CNN is right over there, left-leaning. So, all this was to give YouTube the excuse to pull these channels and to call them misogynistic. Why are they not pulling on the feminist channels that are the same thing? They're not. The reason why is because that bloody horse-faced bitch, Jaworski or Wufleski or whatever bloody ski she is an ardent feminist. And the same thing in Facebook. That stupid Berg woman whose husband died. That needs to be looked at. That looks very suspect. Again, she herself is an ardent feminist. Came out with their stupid ban Bossy campaign. It's ridiculous. So it is concerning that just a couple of days after this has gone out, YouTube is literally affected the mgtow guys and is trying to shut their channels down. I took the red pill in 2012. I was conscious of what was going on, this battle of the sexes, but because I worked in an industry that was, my colleagues were all male, literally, and I went into offices that had women. You meet, women manager or boss. You were there just to get on with your work. When you finished, you went on your business. But you came across, situations that made you aware of what is going on. But I didn't become fully conscious of this until 2012. I was doing a job and I needed to use the toilet. I was putting a system in, and it was a women's gym. Well, they called it was going to be women's only. So there you have it again, a situation where I don't think in Britain today there are male only gym clubs. In the 70s, I think, was it Gold Gym, were picketed and by evil feminists. This is a gym that was privately owned, and only men could go into those gyms. And the feminist bitches went out of their way to force that club to accept women. I don't know what the full extent was. I need to look at it again and find out what they did. But I'm sure they must have firebombed, done all sorts of nonsense to force this gym to accept women. And yet, but today, there are women-only gyms. They don't have to, and nobody pickets these gyms to force them to take men in. No. This is the reason why I realised that we live in a society that women see themselves, it's primarily, they feel this is their society. And we are there now for their bidding. We are there, we have been there for the last 150,000 years, providing and protecting women. Some men have definitely gone over the top, but there was a tradition that people followed. Women did know their place, and their place before all the technological advances that we have today wasn't available 50, 60, 100 years ago. So when these technological advances after the war got very, very, the fridge, the cooker, the washing machine, the washer dryer, the ironing board, the iron, the food mixer, all these things helped to really make it much easier for women to do the homework, the housework. The Hoover is another thing. To do the housework, but to be able to prioritize the time to do that. So they weren't spending all day, doing that work, because it was an all-day job. So if you had children, back in the days in the 1920s and 30s, working class women didn't have a washing machine. It was, water, soap, and it was scrubbed by hand. They had a board and they washed it on the board to, get as much of the dirt out as possible, rinsed it out. Then the plates had to be washed by hands. They didn't have a washing machine. So, if you wanted to have food, there had to be a fire, ongoing fire, or it had to be set up, coal fire, wood fire. And that could take 10, 20 minutes before you could even boil anything. It took a while to cook something. So that, if you wanted today, you just go to the fridge and take something out if you're a bit hungry, Coke or a biscuit or whatever. In those days, it was more difficult to do that. To have a cup of tea, literally had to wait 5 minutes. Wait for the kettle to boil, then you brewed it, and all this kind of nonsense. Today, I have an urn that's 10 litres, and the water is hot throughout the whole day. We just top up the water throughout the whole day. So when you want a cup of tea, it's on tap straight away. Coffee, straight away. It takes literally a few seconds to make. With coffee, it's made a few seconds. With tea, you have to just let it brew for a minute or two. So this hit piece by CNN, this woman, she's a feminist, and I think the good thing about this, I hope other mgtow guys will never allow CNN or any other station to do an interview. Big John now, I wonder what his thoughts are about this. Maybe he thought it went well. It'd be interesting to know, and I'm going to go and search for his video to see what he's thought about this interview. Yeah. Here we go. She seems like this horrible pose. She just looks, I mean, she just loves this pose here. You see her here, What's the point? Are you saying that you're a very attractive woman? No, you're not. You're not. She's not attractive. Jesus. Rachel Dolezal, Journey to Trans Blackness. What the fuck are you talking about? Nutcases. Holy sweet Christmas. The Pope tries to shame mgtow-minded men into marriage. Getting off the subject, I was looking at this. 5 years in jail for men who emotionally, not physically, emotionally bully wives. New law will target bullies who control partners with coercive and controlling behaviour. But what about women who do the same thing? Because it works both ways. There are women who bully their husbands, undermine their husband. This is the thing. I've seen guys who are henpecked. That's the word that is, men who are henpecked by their wives. But you see, the thing is, they make it. This is the way that it's seen. this helpless woman looking at look at me, look at me, and look at this big bad man. You know, listen. At the end of the day, I am so happy um, that I never got married. Uh, I never got married. My mum wanted me to have children, but I didn't. Um, I didn't give a fuck. Not interested. I would have liked kids. No, there's no two ways. You know, I helped bring up my sister's two boys. Great kids. But I didn't want to have anybody in my life that would be controlling or try and control. I just couldn't take it because I know that I would end up in prison. I really would. Um, just not interested. Not interested. I think because this is an example. I mean, if this was like traditional 60s, I would have probably, yes, would have got married, no problem. But as time went, in the 80s, 90s, when you see, no, no, no. The few relationships I had in the past, especially with black women, was an eye opener for me. And I realized that many of these women, when you have a discussion with them, they honestly think that they're intellectually more superior to you. I mean, one girl I went out with, she had a degree. I think it was, civil engineering. Did she use it? No, she was a manager in a call center. She did civil engineering, got the degree. Yeah, great. But she was now a manager in a call center. So, you've done all that civil engineering degree. That's the STEM engineering, STEM course, and you didn't become a civil engineer. Black women are particularly for black men. They are horrendous. I'm telling you, those are the facts. And I'm going to study because I believe that feminism stemmed out of the um, abolition movement that occurred in America in the middle 1800s. And I believe that the attitudes of feminists stemmed from the way in which they must have observed their behaviour of black women towards their husbands and the way they treated their their male companions. I'm sure of that. I'm sure of it. Um, Even though the marriages were much stronger back then for black people, the attitude of black women today, didn't just appear. It's this is the attitude of black women way back during slavery, before slavery. So I believe that the attitude of feminists back in the early 18th century was influenced by black women. But I need to do some research on it. I need to do some research. Yeah. But anyway, getting back to this hit piece by CNN. I hope Big John didn't realise what was going to come out of it. I don't think he did. I don't think he did. I'm sure he just thought, this is a way of promoting mgtow. But unfortunately, YouTube saw it as an opportunity to shut down these channels, and that's what they've gone and done. So anyway, let's see what happens in the next few days, and hopefully people will be able to recover from this. Thanks for listening. I'm going to bed.